Friends, it's Ranger Russ from the Meigs Point Nature Center, coming to you today from the West Field here at Hammonasset. Now, I need to let everyone know, unfortunately, the Nature Center is still closed, but Hammonasset is open and it is an absolutely beautiful day today. Got a nice warm day, but there's a cool breeze off the water, so I think that this would be a really nice day to visit Hammonasset. Now, I've done this walk before. I've done it one time earlier. It was late spring, early summer, and we're going to do it again because we've had the storm, the tropical storm, with a lot of salt spray, which changes the environment quite a bit, and we're late into the summer, and it's been a pretty dry summer. So we should see some very different things this time as we do this field walk. We'll see the same plants, but the plants are not going to look the same. Obviously, earlier in the year, a lot of them would have been flowering. Now, I'm going to flip the camera so you guys can see what I'm looking at. There we go. And I'm going to ask everyone, and I see everybody is already starting to do it, please continue to put up where you're from, along with your questions and comments. And there's somebody from the campground. So the campground is actually right behind me here at the field right now. So we're going to go along. Now, we mow this path so that people can walk through the field or near the field, because we're not, walking out into the brushy areas. And it used to really be a field, but if I'm going to pan here, you're going to see this doesn't really look like a field any longer. And the habitat has changed. This is a successional thing that's happening where it's going from a field area, which would look these types of plants, into a small grove, which are those types of plants. The cedars, there are some shrubby, there are actually some fruit trees. Looks like there's some Marsh Alder in there, and a few other things. Now I'm not seeing any. There is some autumn olive, which is an invasive species, mixed in here as well. A little crab apple. What is this one here? Oh, that looks like the crab apple there. You can see the little apples. Okay. You can see here, this is goldenrod that is not in flower. This one actually hasn't flowered yet. So some of the goldenrods flower earlier in the year, and some of them are actually pretty late into the summer. So, and I believe goldenrod's one of those ones that can take some pretty dry climates. So if we have a dry, droughty like summer, they can still be pretty successful. Now, I want you to look at that tree back there. That's a sassafras. Those are fast-growing trees, a great successional tree because they're so fast-growing. The cedars grow much more slowly. So if you look at that cedar right there that's next to the sassafras, we can guess that that sassafras is probably half the age of that cedar right there. Okay? And there's actually, I see a whole little grove of sassafras beginning to go in the back there. You can see some more sassafras. So that's pretty cool. Now on the other side, so on my left is going to be, that is a field habitat, or was the field that's in the succession stage. This side over here, you can see through the Phragmites, is a salt marsh. Okay, and this is really a buffer. This area is a buffer between the salt marsh that's just on the other side of this and the successional field that's happening here. And here's a good one to show you. This is poison ivy. Now everyone knows or should know that poison ivy, when it's very young, the new growth is reddish, the leaves are reddish. Late in the season, like we're getting now, the leaves will turn red or yellow. Okay? And look at the size of some of these leaves. Many people call this poison oak when the leaves get this large, but there's no poison oak in Connecticut. It's a common name. There is actually a species of poison oak in California that is very different than, not very different, but different from poison ivy. In Connecticut, genetically, they're all the same plant. Poison ivy, poison oak, it's the same in Connecticut. There's not a difference. Okay, there's a lot of poison ivy in here. And again, it's the oils, it's called euchryl oil, and I hope I pronounced that right, I always mess it up, that causes the itchy irritation. Oh, let's see. Why are the trees and plants dying here in the park? So there are two reasons. One is we are in a bit of a drought here. I don't know if it's technically, they're labeling it a drought yet. That actually goes, there's a scientific determination of a drought, but we've had a dry summer. But the other thing is the tropical storm that we have really blew a lot of salt into our area. And that salt extracts the moisture out of the leaves. It causes the leaves to turn brown. So there's two reasons why a lot of the park doesn't look good. It also, that storm knocked down or wiped out a lot of flowering plants. So the flowers got knocked off of the plants, blown off, or again, the salt spray killed them. So you're not seeing a lot of the flowers that we might see. This is bayberry. This is a really awesome plant. This is a native plant. This can grow right along the edges of the marshes. It loves the edges of the marsh. It won't grow out into the marsh, however. Let me just check here and see if we missed any comments. Don't think I did, so we're going to keep going. If you have questions or comments, post them at any time, and I'll try and answer them as I go. So let's continue along here. I see some more crabapple. There's some nice grasses. I'm not really good at identifying the different grasses. I had to do it a lot in college. We had to tell the difference between a grass, a rush, and I'm forgetting the third one. There were three of them. A sage, I think it's a sage, a grass, and a rush, and they're different. So here we've got a really nice little tree, and we're mowing around it, so this tree is going to continue to grow. This is a cherry, a choke cherry. If you saw my program I did up at Mono State Park, after that I did, I think it was an Instagram post where I found a cherry loaded with fruit. The birds hadn't quite gotten to it yet. So the birds love these cherries. Most people don't like to eat them. They've got a sort of a bitter taste to them. I think they're delicious, and I ate a bunch of them that day. So here's the autumn olive that I was looking for. This is an invasive. We don't really like to see this because this forces out, this can outcompete the bayberry and the cherry and a few other plants. So we would rather see, here's autumn olive and here's bayberry. We would rather see bayberry. You want as many different species growing as possible. That is what ensures a balanced ecosystem, a balanced environment, are the diversity of plants and animals. And since plants are the base, that's where the beginning of all the food webs are, plants. So the more different plants you have, the more insects you have, the more birds and other species. So we like to see a pretty diverse habitat as a more successful habitat. Now there are some places in the country, you know, the prairies, where you're only going to have a few different plants growing. Even out in our salt marsh, much fewer plants, fewer species than we have out here in this field. But it is really helpful to have that diversity. Now if you look here, this is, now I always do this, this is Marsh Alder or high tide bush, and there's another plant that grows out here, and I'm completely blanking on the name right now, but if you notice, this has lost a lot of leaves, and this is from that storm. Okay, these had better leafing. Well, actually, in the back there, you can see that tree is completely brown, looks like fall. That's from the storm. We did have some of these Marsh Alder, and I wish I could remember the other plant right now. You've got some growing mixed in with the Phragmites. So again, Phragmites is an invasive, and takes over an area, it's going to take over an area completely, fully and completely. This is all you will have. So there are a few plants mixed in here right now, and it will creep out into the marsh. It has a very high root mass, so it will gradually creep out into the marsh. It doesn't like salt water, it likes fresh water better, but its root mass is up higher, and it just builds that root mass higher and higher and creeps farther and farther into the salt marsh, trying to keep the bulk of its roots up out of the salt. Now, as I'm walking through there's a really good thing. We probably should move our path further into the field. This is pretty wet right here, and it looks like the whole field is a wet. If you look over here, it looks pretty low in this area and wet. This is something that we need to keep an eye on. So as sea level rises, the salt marsh is going to creep in, and we don't want to have people walking through a salt marsh. Salt marshes are really important environments, so we need to change our path. We can walk through a field. Walking through a salt marsh does a lot more damage than walking through a field. So we really want to keep an eye on the areas of the park where sea level is rising and encroaching into other areas. And we can't compete with it. We can't turn it back into a field, so we need to just adjust our behavior rather than trying to control Mother Nature. Here's something a little unusual. Here's some Phragmites growing out further into the field. It's not really low, but I guess it's wet enough for the Phragmites to grow out here. And it will turn. Phragmites, I've seen Phragmites in a small inland freshwater pond grow in, and over years it turned that pond into just a field of Phragmites. And you could actually walk across the pond without getting wet because the Phragmites roots are so high. So that's a great, just an example of what Phragmites can do. Now, we ended up mowing that Phragmites out of there and clearing it out and turning it back into a pond. And that was at Nahantec State Forest that was. So here we've got some winged sumac. Many people, as soon as I say sumac, they're like, oh no, you're gonna get itchy. This is winged sumac. It's not the poison sumac. Poison sumac, so you can just see the beginnings of the berries here. Poison sumac has white berries, and the leaves, so this is a compound leaf, theirs are, now I forget what it's called, double compounded. So they've got compound off of compounded leaves. So this is one entire leaf of the sumac. They would have a small branch with little leaflets on it. I really wish that I knew a place where I could go find some poison sumac so I could show people. Not that I want to get poison sumac. And I want to remind everyone that as you age, your body chemistry changes. So you can lose immunity, and some people gain it, but most of the time it goes the other direction. When I was a kid, I don't ever remember getting poison ivy as a kid. Not until just a few years ago. Now I get just a little bit of it. It's not terrible for me. But the more I come in contact with it, the more I'm reducing my immunity. So I try not to come in contact with it. Okay, here's a great question. Will the salt damage from the storm to the trees and bushes and plants impact the long term, or is it just a temporary and they will snap back? So that is a really great question, and it's sort of a complicated question because it really depends on the plant and the amount of damage. Now, for the most part, by next summer, all of the plants will have recovered. Some of the plants will recover this year, and it depends on, again, their exposure, how much salt they were exposed to, and the type of the plant. Some of them are faster growing and faster recovering. So we should start to see some of it greening up again. And then as we go on, by next spring, most of it should have recovered. But if you look across the way there, you can see those cedar trees. One side of the trees is browned out, and that's the side where the wind was coming from. That will take some time. That will take till next spring, maybe even a little longer for them to fully recover. Some of them that just a little brown tinge, you probably won't even be able to tell by the end of the summer. But some of them, half of the tree looks like it's dead and the needles are already falling off. So great question. I love the questions. There's never a bad question, so keep on asking, keep them coming. All right, let's take a look here. So here's a really good example of the salt marsh encroaching up into our fields, and the grass type will change. So the grasses that are out here in the salt marsh are cordgrass, and I'm beginning to see little spritz of cordgrass popping up here. And this is low enough and wet enough that the cordgrass probably wants to come up here. But again, as we're mowing it, cordgrass doesn't survive mowing very well. Other grasses can survive mowing better than salt marsh grasses. A lot of Phragmites in here, but I'm again gonna think that that's because it's so low and wet. Yeah, the ground is actually squishy under my feet right here. So, and I would expect at high tides, when it's even more wet, to see some crabs running around over there. They go everywhere looking for food. Oh, I gotta show you this. Bayberry again, but here you can see the berries. All right, so this is fantastic. These berries will all pop out. Look how many berries are on there. In the fall, when we get closer to migration, the tree swallows will start to swarm around these bushes. They eat on the wing, so they'll hover there, grab a berry, and fly away. The next one will come down. An entire flock of swallows will be all over these bushes and shrubs eating these waxy berries. They're very waxy. For a person, I can't imagine there's practically no nutritional value there. It's just a hard seed with a little waxy on the outside. So that's a good point. Fruit is there so that an animal eats it and carries it and drops it. So they call it a reward. The reward for spreading my seeds is the fruit. This does not have a whole lot of fruit. There's not a big reward eating bayberry. Okay, I can't even, let's see if I can show you. If you look in, it's a dried out, there's not a lot to that, not a lot of nutrition to that. So they probably have to eat a lot of these and spread the seeds a lot too when they go to the bathroom. But some of the plants have a much, much bigger fruit reward to the amount of seed that there is. The bayberry is one of those that practically no reward for the animal. But in the fall, when there's not a lot of other food available, that's what the swallows are going to eat. And the swallows eat insects as well. All right. So you can see we have a pretty wide path here. It's the width of a mower, which I'm going to say is about a 5-foot mower deck on that mower. But the grasses are growing out and bending over out into the field. And you can see the grasses on the left, those are field grasses. The grasses on the right are getting closer to salt marsh grasses. And you can see the difference in the way that they grow. I find this fascinating. All right, I want to say, I hope everybody is enjoying these programs as much as I'm enjoying doing them. This is a lot of fun for me. Since I don't get to see people ever, at least I get a little bit of interaction. I did see an insect fly in over here, but I lost it in the brush and the grasses, so we're gonna keep going. But yeah, these programs are a great way for me to continue to do the education that I love to do. So it looks like we are at high tide. There's a much better view coming up here. And the tide has got to be coming in because it wasn't this high a few minutes ago. The tide moves pretty quick coming in and out. You can see a lot of water in the grasses there. That's our campground on the other side. Okay. So very cool that we've got all that water in our marsh. There's There's a helicopter. That's pretty high up though. I don't know if you guys can hear the helicopter yet. Let's see. Can we still donate to the Nature Center? So the only way you can donate to the Nature Center now is through the Friends of Hammonasset. So you can do that on the Friends website. I believe when you donate, there's a place that you can say, you know, you like the Nature Center programs or something, a comment. But the building is closed. We really can't let people in the building until they figure out how to handle that. But our friends group are continuing to pay to feed the animals, so that's the best way to make a donation. Now here we've got a little flowering. This looks like a pea. It's in the pea family anyway, it looks like, growing up the Phragmites. And that is so neat. It's just using that. That's it's the stalk is how it's going to climb up. It's climbing up over here too on some goldenrod. So that's pretty neat, and it's all growing around on the ground down there. And this almost looks like, if you look there, looks like some poison ivy down there as well. You can see the 3 leaves. So you got to be really careful when you're out here. Even in the middle of a field, poison ivy can grow. I'm just looking to see if we have anything else. I'm hearing a lot of crickets. Occasionally I'll hear a katydid or something other than a cricket, but the field crickets love this. Okay, looks like we're getting near the end of our field here. Here's a good example of the brown from the storm. So these needles will have to fall off. Most of these, the needles are not alive any longer, so they have to fall off before new ones can grow. So as they fall off, the trees may look like they're dying, but hopefully they will all come back. I don't worry about any of these. These don't look like a lot of damage. Some of the trees in other parts of the park have a lot of damage. So a very different circumstance depending on how close they are to the water. That determines how much wind was blowing and hitting them. So here's a little area. Okay, we've got a choice here. I'm gonna go this way, because last time I didn't go out here at all, I don't think. So this area here was that we were doing a beach renourishment. Oh, there go. I just spooked out a couple of mourning doves. We're sitting down here on my right. They did a beach renourishment, and they were storing the sand here while it was getting put out onto the beach. So now that we've cleared this area out, this actually originally was part of the parking lot. And we have given it up. We cannot park cars out here any longer because you can see the Salt Marsh, the high tide is coming right in here. And we, again, don't want to be parking cars. You guys don't want to put your cars in salt water. And we don't want to infringe on the Salt Marsh. So the Salt Marsh is coming back. Now, originally this was a parking lot, but before it was a parking lot, it was a Salt Marsh. The state filled it in to make more parking at one point. And now nature is taking it back. All right, standing here. So now that I am not in the cover of the field, and I'm not sure if you can hear the wind blowing in the mic, there's a beautiful breeze here at the park today. So I feel like I've just stepped out into air conditioning, going from the wind being blocked by the field plants, stepping out here. It's just beautiful. And if you look over again at the campground, you can imagine all the people over there, how comfortable they must be with this beautiful breeze off the water. All right, we're gonna look. So if we move over here, this area was a parking lot much more recently than the rest of the field. So we're going to see a little bit of a difference in the plants. Okay. I see some Seaside Goldenrod. Again, it's not flowering. There's some ragweed, really common plant. So the goldenrod and the ragweed very often get confused. Most people that have allergies believe the goldenrod causes the allergies, but really it's the ragweed. Here's the ragweed right there. There's a good example. The ragweed and the goldenrod flower at the same time. Ragweed has a green flower, so no one ever sees it. There's ragweed and goldenrod. Okay. So when the ragweed is flowering, that's a flower of the ragweed. People don't see that. They see the beautiful golden flowers and they think, there they go. There goes my allergies. There's a Seaside Goldenrod and a ragweed. And the Seaside looks like the flowers just starting to pop up through the top there. So if you think that goldenrod is your nemesis, if you have strong allergies coming on near the end of the summer, it's probably the ragweed. So if you look across here, you see a lot of brown flowers. These are, and then there's some white. This is all Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne's lace is in the carrot family. If you look there, there's the Queen Anne's lace, but a lot of it is browned up. And this could be because we're kind of dry, or it could be because of that storm. All of the higher, older growth had brown, so the salt may have sprayed on it. And then the new growth popping out, because it's been a week or so since the storm, is still nice and white. All right. So I've gotten off of a path here, and I'm not sure where the path went. So we're just going to get back onto our bike path. We have a beautiful bike path. You can, if you don't want to walk that field walk, you can go right along the bike path. Here we go. Litter. I hate it, but it's everywhere. So here's my chance to talk about how if every person in Connecticut, every person in the world, anywhere you are, if you go out and find a piece of trash, if everybody found one piece of trash a day, it would become hard to find. Oops. The gimbal turned off on me. So if every person picked up a piece of trash, it would become difficult to find trash. Okay? Think about how many people there are. Also, if your goal was to pick up one piece of trash a day, I think it would be much less likely that you threw trash out of your car or dropped it on the side of the path as you were walking, which I imagine somebody was just walking along, drinking a bottle, tossed it into the bushes. I'm not sure why anyone would think that's a good idea. But that's how I grew up. So for some people, I guess if you grew up with a different attitude or a different lesson, here we got a, looks like a dog poop bag. Not a used one, thank goodness. Oh, all right, I got distracted by picking up trash, almost missed the thistle. This is a really great field species, common field species. Take a look at the thorns. Look at those. You do not want to walk into one of these unprepared. Okay, beautiful flowers. I think many of you will remember, I think as Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh used to like to eat the thistle. So I love the thistle. And there's a bumblebee pollinating our thistle. That's awesome. Oh, two bumblebees competing for the same. One of them has a load of pollen. The other one looks like it's completely just starting out collecting pollen. You can see the little yellow on the leg there, that little yellow sac. That is pollen that this bumblebee has collected from multiple flowers. And then will return to its hive with that pollen. The other one flew away empty-handed, I notice. Okay. So really cool. I love thistle. Even though thistle, it hurts like a son of a gun. I've stepped on it barefoot. It's really pretty uncomfortable, but it's a beautiful flower. It's not super common, but it's great to have it. Again, it adds to species diversity, so we like to see it. Now I want to bring you over to my truck because on the drive down here to do this program, I drove from the nature center down to the west end of the park. Stuck out in the bushes along the dunes, I found more trash, which I would like to talk about. So I'm just walking over the area where one of the trees, that tree I think blew down during the storm. So, all right. Can everybody see inside my truck? You can see the trash that I found on the drive down here. Okay, balloons. These are terrible. And one of the worst parts about balloons is not just the balloon itself, but that cord right there. Animals have a hard time breaking this string, okay? So please, if you see balloons on the side of the road, anywhere you see them, and I didn't see them on my drive in, so they probably, and they're pretty old, they probably landed in the dune as after I passed by the first time. I tend to notice these types of things, but please, if you notice it, pick it up, pop the balloons, cut the strings, stick it in the trash. Let's put more trash in my bucket here. And so I carry it in the truck so it doesn't blow out as I'm driving down the roads also. All right, so let's spin it around here, flip the camera. All right, again, I hope everyone enjoys these programs. They will continue Tuesday through Friday at 11 on Facebook Live. You can also see programs on our YouTube channel and on our website. This coming Friday at 6:30, we're doing a very special program. I'm going to be doing a program on amphibians of Connecticut, so I'm very excited to bring that to you. You can watch that one live on YouTube and on Facebook and on the website. You won't be able to comment if you're watching it on the website, but if you're watching it on YouTube or Facebook, you can make comments and questions as we go. I'm going to beg everybody to get everyone you know to sign up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. When I get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I will be able to go YouTube Live, just like I do Facebook Live. So that's my goal. I'm trying to get to that number. But also, please continue to subscribe and like our Facebook page. And visit our website, because there's additional information to each of these videos. We'll put up puzzles, games, all sorts of educational things that you can use to home educate your children, or if you just want to do it yourself, which I do the activities myself. I really enjoy them. I even like the mazes. Some of them are pretty straightforward, but I still like to do them anyway. So I encourage you all to do that as well. All right, hopefully everybody's having a fantastic day. It's a beautiful day. I hope you can get out and enjoy one of our state parks. Until next time, this is Ranger Russ signing off from the west end of Hammonasset Beach State Park.